Inclusion and Diversity co-lead. I lead alongside Ms. Erica Billick. We are so excited to bring this event to you today. The thought behind this, what inspired it is that there are so many things that we've experienced where we have been the first to do it, whether it be the first woman, the first generation in our family to be raised in America, the first person of color, or the only person in a room. So the hope in these conversations is that it really spotlights that there is more that brings us together than divides us. And the more that we hear stories and learn from others, the more we can be empathetic, the more that we can grow together and really just have a sense of community and do great things. So we are excited to have this session today. The panelists that will be coming forward later, we have a few things beforehand, are all dynamic, awesome leaders from within this VA MHS sector. They are female leaders, so they have so much insight to share. So excited to bring them. But before we do, we are so honored to have our portfolio director, Vince Blasio. He is the Defense and Intelligence portfolio lead. So he is going to open us up, say a few opening remarks, and then we're going to get underway. So Vince, I give the floor to you.
All right. Hey, super. Thanks, Erica. Appreciate you guys inviting me to join today. And Erica, I'd like for you to invite me to all your events in the future with that musical introduction. Yours are much more fun than others that I typically get pulled into. I have no idea who that artist is. So, Erica, I'm going to have to introduce you to Joan Jett and Heart. That's kind of more my speed. So, hey, just a couple thoughts about this event and Women's History Month in general. I'm going to kind of, borrow something I heard Morgan Freeman say in an interview some time ago. He was actually somebody asked him a question about Black History Month. And I can't remember exactly how Morgan Freeman responded, but his response was something along the lines of, he wasn't totally into Black History Month. And his reason was interesting. He said, I don't want Black history to be relegated to 1 month a year. Black history is American history. And I thought that's like a really, really cool perspective. And I kind of, extend that into, Women's History Month, right? I mean, the contribution that women have made, in our country and the world, I mean, they're all around us. They're happening every day. So it's wonderful that we take a month to kind of, call this out and celebrate the contributions of women. But I think it's also important that we keep those contributions in mind and kind of remember them just throughout our daily lives. And just three things that I was thinking about is I was kind of thinking about my comments for this meeting that just kind of jump out at me about contributions that women have made just recently, and it kind of points out that the contributions are every day and all around us. One is in my news feed, I saw Sabine Schmitz passed away recently. Many of you may not know Sabine Schmitz, but Sabine Schmitz is a German woman. I think she's German, maybe Austrian. And she's the only woman to ever win the 24 hours of Nürburgring. And Nürburgring is a racetrack in Germany, and it's one of the most dangerous and notorious tracks in the world. And everybody knows the 24 hours of Le Mans. So it's an equivalent race, 24 hours of Le Mans. And she was the only woman to ever win that race, which is a phenomenal achievement. Another one that came to mind was my wife and I, a month or so ago, went to a restaurant in Old Town Alexandria called Ada's on the river. And I was talking with the owner, and he said that he named the restaurant after Ada Lovelace. And some of you may know Ada Lovelace, some may not. Ada Lovelace was a female mathematician who lived about 200 years ago. And she's credited with being the first person to write an algorithm that was intended for use on a computer. So I encourage everybody to go to Wikipedia and just do a quick read on Ada Lovelace. It's a really, really interesting story. And she's credited with the first algorithm to be written on what was then a mechanical computer. Then the third one that leaped to mind was Katherine Johnson. Some of you may recognize that name. If you've seen the movie Invisible Figures, it's about the NASA space mission. And Katherine Johnson was a Black female who worked for NASA. I think she started in the 50s, certainly in the 60s. And she was integral to the Mercury program, which is the program that put John Glenn the first American to orbit the Earth in space, into orbit. Later played a significant role in the Apollo moon landings, and it was just a phenomenal, lady. And the interesting thing was in the movie, there's a line where John Glenn, so he was the astronaut that was going to circumvent the Earth in space. At the time, they didn't trust these newfangled things called computers. So he said he wasn't going to go up in the spaceship until Katherine Johnson manually reviewed and verified the numbers for orbital mechanics to make sure that he was going to go into space and come down where they expected him to be, and the mission was going to be performed safely. So just three examples of where just recently, women have made phenomenal contributions. Just kind of just came to mind to me. So I want to share those with you guys to just kind of help make that point. And then the third thing is when I look at our own business, I'm happy with the trajectory of women in our business, but not satisfied with our current results. If I look at the MDs in defense as an example, 30% of the MDs working in the defense business are women. You're really happy with that. And if I look at the pipeline of folks who are in the mix to be MDs, at some point in the future, really happy with the pipeline. So we've got a strong pipeline of women that are coming up through the ranks, and looking forward to see us, continue to kind of promote and celebrate, those folks as well. So we're not there yet on our goal of having 50%, women in the workforce, but I think we're on our way, and I think over time, I think we're going to get there. So happy with those results. And then finally, just want to share a little bit about myself with everybody. I think a lot of folks look at me and they see, hey, he's a middle-aged white guy with like a really cool mustache, but oftentimes you don't know the story behind the story. I see I got at least one grin there from somebody. Oftentimes you don't know the story behind the story. So just a quick bit about me. My grandfather came to this country, we think in 1904. The record's not completely clear. He was, we think, 13 years old at the time. He and his father, came to this country from Macedonia, and kind of made their way, into the U.S. And he ended up working. He worked in steel mills in Northeast Ohio. He worked at Republic Steel, which I don't think exists anymore. And I remember as a young boy, I'd go visit my grandparents, and my grandfather, never said a whole lot, which I always thought was interesting. It wasn't until later I figured out he didn't speak English that well, and I'd go and visit them. My grandmother would make me a treat, and the treat she would make would be it was white bread with butter and some sugar sprinkled on it. And I thought, oh, that was the best thing ever. I used to love that. And then I realized later, that's what you made for a treat when you didn't have a whole lot of money. That was their version of a donut. So very humble beginnings. My dad didn't speak English till he went to grade school, and my dad, and if I look at my mother's side of the family too, my dad was the only one of, I think there were 8 of them total, on my mom's side, my dad's side. He was the only one to go to college. He started off and he was going to originally kind of going down a path of going to a vocational school, and he was going to be a bookkeeper. And somewhere along the way, I think he was, he had a job, shagging golf balls at like the local country club. And he kind of figured out, hey, if I get a college education, I can do better for myself. So he went to Ohio University, graduated with an accounting degree, and ended up doing well, and ended up being CFO for a small manufacturing company, in Ohio. And then, here I am today, right? Had the good fortune of going to the Naval Academy, been with Accenture for 33 years. So I'm the product of, of an immigrant family. And, so I guess, and growing up, I saw some things with my grandparents in particular, and I'd say, I kind of get, some of the, the prejudice that some people experience to some extent, by seeing that and kind of lived in a little bit. So I think I would say I get it, some more than others, not as much as probably, many other people do. So that's my way of saying, totally supportive of the ID initiative within Accenture, and really appreciate what you guys are doing on the VA MHS sector, and just applaud you guys being very, very, active in your I&D program. So Erica, that's it. So with that, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Vince. I was over here like scribbling notes and looking at the chat of like all the people I need to go and look up now. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you tying it in also in personalizing it in your story of how your dad was the first and the only. So thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. Hope you stick around for a little bit. We have some great panelists, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I'll stick around for a bit, Erica. I'm in the middle of a strategy review for another deal, so I'll stick around for a while, listen, but I'll go back and join that a little bit. But appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right. So one more thing before we get in with to our panelists. I asked and he said yes because he's just an amazing lead like that. So Chris Van Berkel is with us. I have him for a few minutes, so I came prepared with questions because I'm like, this is going to be great. So before we get into my questions, Chris, good afternoon, good morning to those of you who are on the West Coast. I know some are in Seattle and California. We even have people in Hawaii. So thank you for being with us. Chris, before we get into the questions, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been with Accenture? Anything we need to know?
It's always a loaded question, right, Eric? No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I've been with Accenture 26 years, so not as long as Vince, but came in as an experienced hire. Got a lovely wife, 2 kids, having some fun in the pandemic. My son took a gap year instead of starting his freshman year at UVA. So having him around another year is both, I guess, a blessing and an interesting time because he's an adult and ready to move off. So a lot of fun there. But clearly the impact of the pandemic to him, missing out on his senior year, and then seeing my daughter go through a year of high school at home. Lots of fun, but lots of interesting times. But we're making the best of it. So appreciate being able to join everybody here.
Thank you. If I always say if I could go back and do it again, I would take a gap year because I think that, college is great. I'm like, I should have delayed it just a little bit. So my first question for you, given that you've been with Accenture for over 20 years, one of the things we know is that back then it was a pretty male-dominated industry. So given that landscape, how have you seen a shift over time? Have you seen more women enter the industry and rise in the ranks? And what do you think has attributed to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, joining Andersen Consulting back in the mid 90s, it absolutely, excuse me, was male dominated. But I think I've been very fortunate in that in my career, I've had several leaders who happen to be women running very important things when it comes to my career. I joined the Utility Solution Center down in St. Pete, Florida, which was one of the first 2 within Andersen Consulting. And it was run by Terry Cardwell, who was one of the top technology partners at the time, which is pretty cool, as well as Mary McCord, who folks who've been around DC for a while may remember as well. So, being in a technology-based center in the mid 90s focused on utilities, run by 2 strong women leads was good. Didn't know any better as to what that meant, but certainly they were very successful. They helped me when I transitioned up here to DC and joined the Government Solutions Center, who also happened to be run by Miriam Baradari, another strong female lead that you all have seen around here in the technology region. Was assigned Kara Sutherland, who led technology in the DC office, as well as my career counselor. So it was absolutely male dominated, but there are certainly pioneers around here. And I feel very fortunate to have benefited from them as being mentors, both in the short and the long term. Terry and I went to Miami, albeit at different points in time. We've kept in touch over the years and to see what she has done both within the firm and then post the firm. She leads one of the top organizations in the U.S. for helping out Afghan refugees, especially women and children, and being able to be exposed to that, to help with that in any way that I can, and to continue that relationship for a long time is something that I think is pretty cool. It's been very informative in my life and certainly has helped.
I had a follow-up question, but I'm going to stick to mine. So the next question I have for you, we could talk all day. I always have is speaking from personal experience, you are such a great people lead. And I know that one of the things that I've experienced in working for you, under you, with you, is that you are very much into empowerment and into people feeling empowered to make decisions and forge a path forward. So one of my next question for you is there a quote or philosophy that shapes the way that you approach leadership?
Absolutely, and it's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. It's, treat others as you would want to be treated yourself. And I think when you apply that to Accenture, you have to look at our core values, right? Respect for the individual, best people, integrity, and stewardship. And I know I've got a bit of a reputation of sometimes of being pretty forward and frank, and sometimes that comes off as harsh, but it's really around trying to, deal in the truth, to have that integrity, to be ethical and sort of unyielding in your honesty, to respect individuals for their opinions, while providing your opinion in a professional way, but always trying to surround yourself with those who can make you successful while you make them successful, and having a sense of stewardship to bring everybody up, because we're not on this journey alone. And people have examples of others who might micromanagement, or others who would do things differently. But I believe that Accenture hires, a lot of type A personalities who have a drive to succeed. And if you align to those core values, it all comes back to keeping it very, very simple. Treat others as you would want to be treated yourself.
I love it. Okay, so third question, maybe final. I might sneak one more in. So for those of you who are able to attend Viola Davis's keynote when we had the International Women's Day event on the 12th, time is speeding by. One of the things that she said towards the end was that you can either leave something for people or you can leave something in people. So I pose to you, Chris, in your sphere of influence, what is something that you would like to leave in people?
Sure. I would like to leave people with the confidence to be the best version of themselves. And that's one of those sayings that encompasses many, many things. I think most importantly, at this point in time, it encompasses empathy, right? If you have the confidence in yourself, if you respect yourself, I think you can respect others. And now is a time when a lot of empathy is needed.
Awesome. Okay, so since I've got you for like 2 more minutes, my bonus question, what are you watching right now?
Oh man. Last night I just finished Zack Snyder's Justice League. That was a very long 4 hours. Thought it was good. Thought it was, okay. Outside of that, a lot of documentaries, the Go-Go's, Beastie Boys, Van Halen, Guns N' Roses. So I can deal with Vince's music, but I did Shazam your music and found out who Estelle is. But other documentaries like Reagan, Tiger Woods, Bruce Lee. So really just like everyone else in my spare time, zooming through a lot of online streaming services.
I can relate. Documentaries, not so much. I've been watching like completely like I don't need my brain. Although I did watch WandaVision and I needed my brain for it because I was like, there's so much here. But thank you so much for joining us today,
Absolutely.
Chris. Really appreciate you being here with us.
No, thank you. Thank you. And check out Umbrella Academy.
Oh, okay. You did? Okay, I'm gonna add it to my list.
All right.
Thank you so much. So without further ado, we have a panel of awesome, amazing, dynamic leaders within our sector who are going to be sharing lessons learned, the impacts that their experiences in corporate America and personal life have had on them. So without further ado, I would like to introduce and bring in our panelists. So our first one is Ms. Dominique Stewart. She is a managing director and a part of our ABE venture. Our next panelist is Ms. Donnelly Sykes. She is senior manager and she is on our Navy BUMED venture on the CHIPS project. And then last but 1000%, certainly not least, is Ms. Anthu Vohu, who is a manager here with Accenture and part of the ABE venture. So before we get too deep into it, I'm just going to ask you ladies to introduce yourselves, and because we've got some fun stuff to cover. So I'll pass it to you first, Dominique.
Okay. I don't know how we go after Chris and Vince, but Dominique Stewart, I've been with Accenture 23 years and celebrating my 20th anniversary this year with my husband. So Accenture was my first marriage. I have 3 daughters and live in Alexandria, Virginia. I started with Accenture in Chicago and relocated to DC when I was on the DLA account for almost 15 years. So, and then I've been in military health and VA over the last 4 years. So happy to be here. Thanks for including me, Erica.
Thank you for being with us. Anthu, if you could introduce yourself to our awesome attendees.
Sure. My name is Anne Booth, and I've been with Accenture for 5 years. My anniversary is coming up in 5 years. I'm currently the development manager for community projects. I'm also helping out supporting the mobilizations effort for the DGI project. So if you know any external hires that you would recommend for us, please send them my way.
Perfect.
I'm excited to be on the panelist today.
So excited to have you. And then Donna-Lee Sykes. Miss Donna-Lee Sykes, if you don't mind introducing yourself before we get into our first question.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Donna-Lee Sykes. I have been at Accenture for 4 years and have enjoyed it immensely. Prior to that, I was in the military for 30 years. My background is medical. I'm a bachelor's prepared nurse, and I have a master's in organizational management. My time in the military was 30 years, so I'm dating myself by saying that. But I've served in many different capacities in the Air Force. My last being, and I say that just to show the experiences I've had. I was the Deputy Surgeon General for Air Force Space Command and the Director of Air Force Nursing Services, and I commanded medical groups and squadrons. So I have had a lot of instances of thought-provoking circumstances where things were in question. Yeah. And I have 2 daughters, and they both are adults. One lives in Dallas, and one lives in Virginia Beach. They're the apples of my eye, and I'm just really fortunate and feel very grateful to be here.
Oh, thank you. As you guys can already see, like our panel is just jam-packed with experience. So this is about to be a great discussion. So if anyone was able to join last month for the Being the First and Sometimes Only that we did in honor of Black History Month, one of the things I mentioned was that my own experience in it was that in my college graduating class, I was the only African-American marketing major, which meant that in many of my classes, I was the only person of color. People recognized me, I stood out a lot, and I realized that it was preparing me for corporate America and just valuing my voice, valuing my uniqueness, and the unique experiences that I brought to projects in the situation, and that even if we all look different, we all have so many shared experiences and commonalities. So what I would like to pose to the group, to our awesome panel, is can you think of any time where you've been the first to do something or the only, whether it be the first in your family to go to college or the only woman in a room or only person of color, and how that experience shaped you and what you learned from it?
I can go first. There's a pause, and I hate awkward silence. So I can go first. So I can tell you that I spent the first 18 years of my life in Vietnam. So I migrated here not knowing a lot of English. So it's kind of a challenge for me to do presentations, being in front of the team, because I'm sometimes self-conscious about, especially when team members are being racist, but very subtle, saying that I have an accent, they have a hard time understanding me. So that one of the unique challenges that I faced, not only as a woman, but as an Asian immigrant woman, working in IT as a manager. So one of the things I've been practicing is practicing my presentations ahead of time, making sure I have the correct pronunciations, and then building up my confidence. as well as trying to have a thick skin to ignore all of those very nasty comments. And if they're coming back, then I will have a sidebar with them.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I'm gonna pass it to the panel because, like I point out with Chris, I can talk too much. So,
Donnelly, you want to go first?
Okay, I will. Oops, camera, they're trying to flip the buttons. First of all, I could relate to what Vince said about his dad. I am the first one in my family to graduate from high school of four of us, and the first one to go to college. And so that always kind of set me apart from the rest of my family, which I got, some razzing about at times, some good, some bad. But one of the things that I experienced, and I was the first African American to graduate out of the College of Nursing in 8 years that they have on record. So I went to school with no one of color my whole 4 years in college. But I just want to share experience with you. When I was a group commander, a individual came into my office to file a complaint or to talk to the commander. And my secretary said, okay, I'll get her for you. And when I opened the door, he just looked at me and he said, you can't be the commander. And I was kind of stunned. I said, no, I am. Can I help you? And he says, you can't be the commander. And he he said, well, this is a surprise. He goes, well, I want to speak to somebody that's higher than you. I said, well, you could speak to the wing commander, but they're only going to refer you back to me, and I'll try my best to help you. And he just went out and slammed the door. And, and it really made me think. And so for me, it was like, wow, what could I have said to change his mind? But later on, as years passed, because I was there for 3 years, he came back and he mentioned to me how rude he was. So, sometimes you just have to sit back and let it resonate with people, because he wasn't expecting to see a female African American in that position.
Well, I've got nothing compared to those stories. No, I mean, I think that in my 20-some years with Accenture, I've definitely been first for a lot of things. It started off, I was the youngest. Then I was one of the first to have kids on the project. Same for my husband, and our bosses at the time weren't, they were used to managing younger people without kids. And so it was definitely a challenge kind of setting boundaries and expectations with our leadership, and not being, seen as slackers or not doing, our job because we had a family as well. And now it's kind of turned, and there's a lot of young people on my team, and I feel really old most of the time. So that's a new dynamic for me, being one of the, the oldest on the team. Yesterday we were talking about Carmen Sandiego, and everyone on the team was like, what's that? But I think something Erica said at the very beginning resonates with me. I think that I found I just have to celebrate the uniqueness, and try and be genuine and authentic, and everything that we've gone through in our lives, it just brings new perspective to how we treat others and how we engage with clients and fellow people on our projects. So I try not to look at how am I different, but what can I bring to a conversation or to a problem that maybe others can't.
Okay, so I can completely understand like the microaggressions, whether it be against motherhood or accents or dialect. I know Donnelly and I have spoken that people have said things about her Rhode Island accent. I'm like, you sound regular. Like you sound
Michigan.
See?
Yeah, every time you say pop. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, and one of the things to follow up on that, because we've all had such unique experiences, is can you recall a time where someone came to a conclusion about you or about your abilities without even knowing you, and how you contended with that, as not only as a woman, just as a professional of who are you to come to this conclusion, but also I'm going to excel and I'm going to do what I was brought here to do?
I can speak to that, Erica. Unfortunately, trying to get my okay. I deployed, and it was a while back. I don't want to date myself, but I deployed with a group of people, and I was the team lead commander at the time. And I had a few physicians, nurses, technicians with me, and we operated a clinic. And when we got to the deployed location, the ER physician said to me two things. He said, "I don't want to work for a nurse, and I don't want to work for a woman." He said, and I don't, and then he goes, "And I'm not sure I really want to be here." And he said, "So I'm not gonna be nice to work with." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm not gonna tell you how to practice, but I will help to support you and provide you leadership." And by the end of our deployment, which was almost 8 months, we were the best of buds, and we worked together really well. And when we got back stateside, he was leaving the military, and I went down to the ER to go to his farewell, and he did this whole commentary on how we worked together so well, and how he would never ever say anything bad about a woman as a leader or a nurse. So that kind of just made my life at that point in time. I was like, wow, you can turn people's head around. And he said, I would have never thought that we would have had that type of relationship. So it ended up being a good news story for him as well as for me, because it was easier to work with him than when he was angry.
I will never work for a nurse or a woman.
Oh, a woman. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if any of you know any ER physicians, but they can be a little persnickety, I must say. So, and he was definitely that.
And Donnelly, what was your rank when you retired?
I was a colonel. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So many years of many experiences.
Many years of many experiences. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to open it. I'm going to open it up. Because I'm like, I think I would have, he picked the right one. Because I would have been like, well, quit then. I don't know what to tell you. Because I'm not going anywhere. So you want me to help you put in your papers? But that's also why I'm like, I'm not in that position. So is there anyone else who would like to share an experience they had?
Donnelly has amazing stories of her deployments overseas and the dynamics of being in different foreign countries too. She's awesome. Yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
that love you. I think, like I said, one of the struggles I had when I first started with Accenture is I looked really young, and I was right out of school. And when I first started with Accenture, I was working in the automotive industry, and it was very male dominated. We were going into facilities and plants and whatnot, and same thing, right? Just you can't possibly be qualified to to work for Accenture, let alone be in a technology. I was in TGP, and there weren't a lot of women in TGP. So I think again, it just had to build my self-confidence and my executive presence, and build the confidence in myself that I was just gonna let it roll off, and not take it to heart too much, and not let it impact my performance.
Well, I should have come first, right? It's hard to follow up with those two amazing stories. So I can share that one of the challenges that I have is I have a fear of failure. So I always try the best not to fail. And that is also a curse, because I feel like sometimes you try too much. You try to get the attentions, like you try to get the acknowledgement from the team, that you are worth it for the positions that you are in, especially since there's not a lot of us Asian women in IT management. So I feel like there's something that I have to keep challenges myself. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try and fail, and so not being afraid of failure. Because I feel like we're not expected to know it all. Well, we're expected to learn from a mistake and do better next time.
1000%. And I agree, because I am a perfectionist where like I can make the list and then I'm like, but I don't know where to start. So I'm not going to start because I could pick the wrong thing. So this is too much. So I 100% can relate to that. One of the things that has come up, especially during COVID and during the pandemic and being home, is that, you know, there are studies now finding that there are so many pressures that are so unique to women. We wear so many different hats as caregiver, mother, you know, boss at work, executive, running the household. So in these times, how have you felt that has worn on you, or the impact that has had, those unique hats that we wear?
Oh, I can go on this first. So I have a little daughter. She's 6 years old now, and she has mastered the art of duck and roll and whisper whenever she come into my English study, so that she would not bomb my Zoom meeting, would not bomb when I'm on camera. And then when she whispering, so that no one knows she's there, asking for if there's an emergency with Lego or if there's an emergency with Play-Doh.
I love the duck and roll and whisper.
Yes.
My daughters are not so polite. I think in the course of the pandemic, all of them have infiltrated a Zoom meeting, some more subtly than others. I think this has been a curse of mine since long before the pandemic, and everyone who knows me well knows the story of the helium hand. My husband calls me a helium hand because when stuff's not getting done or no one's volunteering for things, my hand just kind of like goes up like a balloon. Yeah. And I get involved in everything, right? You know, I've been auction chair at my kids' school for years. I volunteer at the hospital, working parent DRG lead, you name it, right? But I think what the pandemic has taught me is to focus on the things that are really important to me and not give up on those things. So I'm still a helium hand, but this year it was a virtual auction. It was a lot less work. And I'm helping out with a yearbook, which is a passion of mine, you know, for talk. So it's a fun hobby. So I think it's forced me to focus on the things that I really wanted to volunteer my time, you know, that was meaningful to me. I think the biggest struggle I've had is virtual schooling. We've been blessed that our kids are in Catholic school, and so for the most part, they've been in person. But those few weeks last spring, they were home for several months being virtual schooled, and then in the fall for several weeks, and then after Christmas. So I discovered I'm not a good teacher. Glad that I decided not to be a teacher. I was going to at one point in my life. Not very good at that. But I've learned to ask for help too. My mom was a school teacher, and she's been helping the kids on virtual Zooms, and that's historically been a really bad thing for me, to ask for help. And I think that's probably my biggest lesson learned this year, is that I couldn't have gotten through, you know, the pandemic without help. So I'm glad I, at least, you know, 40 plus years old, finally learned the lesson to ask for help. So
I gotta tell you, and I know Donnelly probably has, I have to like give 5,000 rounds of applause to every working parent in this pandemic. I have a dog. Like, I just have a Frenchie, and I'm like, anyone who's on this call, who's on my team, has like seen me like stop and look at her and be like, really? And she's a pup. Like, she can't even talk back. She can't even really make a mess. And I'm like, I'm over here losing it with a 1-year-old dog. So my cousin has like 4 girls. I'm like, all of you are rock star warriors, because I struggled with a puppy. So
no, you should see my house. I'm usually OCD, anal retentive, house is gorgeous. Yeah, no, not so much. Not the last year.
Yeah. And it just is what it is. And I love Dom that you said helium hand, because that's me. Like I'm like, well, no one's speaking up, so I'll do it. Or like, there are no volunteers, I'll do it. It needs to get done. It's really important. Sure. And I'm trying to learn, like, in the pandemic, to just say no. Like, I have a friend who's trying to get me to join something now, and I'm like, I'm just gonna have to, I'm sorry, I have to say no. She's like, you're forgetting about me. No, I forgot about myself for a very long time. So I just have to say no here. And I'll help you later, but right now I'm already barely sleeping. If I help you, I'm never gonna sleep. And I'm gonna be a horrible, mean person, and no one will want to work with me. So
yeah, good for you. It's hard. It's hard.
It is.
Yeah.
I love hearing the babies cry, because I'm an old pediatric nurse and a newborn nursery nurse. I love hearing the babies cry in the background, and sometimes I get to see them, which is even more awesome. And then also seeing the kids running back and forth, and I just love it. And I'm very fortunate. My children are grown, so I don't have to contend with that. So I applaud you all that do.
Yeah, it's a lot. Oh my, it's already 1:15. Okay, so I'm gonna ask our last question. This one's gonna be more like a rapid fire one, and then we're gonna take questions and from those watching. Everyone, please don't hesitate to drop your questions in the chat. We will get to them. Anything you want to ask, whether it's about working moms or special experiences, please drop it there. Allyship, anything. So my final question is, yeah, we're going to go with this one. So if you could go back and tell your younger self anything other than buy Amazon stock, what would it be?
I can go first. So I think I would tell my younger self that do not afraid to take risks. This is go tie back to my fear of failure. So I would not have been where I am today had I not taken a chance. Erica knows this. I used to be a QA. I'm very comfortable with my role. I can come in at 8, like sometimes 7:30 in the morning, roll out at 4, to have everything completed, to have everything I figured out, and very comfortable with the positions, the growth hours. And then I was offered the opportunity to become the PM for small projects, backfill for Erica. And at that time, I was like, I have no idea what's going on in the PM role. All I've done in my career is QA. So I take the leap of faith, because one of my mentor told me that if you are comfortable doing what you are doing right now, then it's time for you to take a different position. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm happy to report that every day I'm faced with challenges, like new challenges that I've never faced before, and I am motivated and happy that I take the leap of faith.
I love it.
I think I would tell my younger self to slow down and worry less. I'm a worrier, worried about, is moving to DC the right thing? And, am I a bad mom because I work too much? Am I bad at my job because I have 3 kids? I think I just, the pandemic has forced a lot of that. But I've definitely always been a worrier, and I think I just need to slow down and enjoy life more and worry a little bit less.
I love it. Donnelly?
Dom, I'm right with you on that one. To slow down and enjoy life more, and also don't let anyone underestimate you. I wish someone would have drilled that into me, and then maybe my challenges wouldn't have been so stressful sometimes. And then also to always remember to treat people with respect. And I would tell myself that again if I were younger, because I think it's important to do that. So that's it.
I love it. So when I ran this question by my mom, I gave her my answer. I'll give you, and she was like, huh. So my thing I would tell my younger self is that it's okay to cry. I feel like when I was first coming into corporate America, I was like, I can never cry. Like, I can never cry at work. No one can no one can see me upset. It'll make me look weak. It'll make me like people look at me differently. So I spent so much time like holding it in. And then I got older and I was just like, that hurt my feelings. We do really hard work. Like, it's okay for me to cry. I'm not going to boo-hoo in every meeting, but like, it's okay for like all the things that we experience and the things we come up against and the unique challenges that are unique to women. Anthu, when she took over TriWest, I had taken a role in Arizona on PC3 under Maggie. And that was the hardest project I've ever been on in my entire life. It was challenging because I wasn't here. I was flying to Phoenix. Our client is very unique. And I was like, it's okay for me to go back to my hotel room every now and then and shed a tear. It doesn't make me weak. It just means that this is hard. I'm going to wipe them away and do what I have to do, but it's okay for me to feel everything that's going on here and process it, move on. Like, this isn't a sign of weakness. This is just a sign of humanity. So I told my mom that, and she was like, that's because you're a feeler. And I was like, well, I guess I am.
No, you're genuine and authentic, and that's what we love about you. So
thank you. Yeah. So mine was, you can cry. And then I'm just like, team, if you need to cry, I'm here. If you need to leave work early because you're having a rough day, that's okay. No one will judge you. This is hard. Like this, we do hard things. We do hard stuff. So I want to thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I know that Ms. Portia Hines is with us and she had a question to ask the group, and then we'll hand it over to Sean Roman to close us out. You're on mute, Portia, but we are so excited to hear your question.
Okay, can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. So I just wanted to thank you all just so much for just this opportunity to hear you all speak, because in this short amount of time, like there's so much that I've taken from each and every one of you that I can relate to. For example, like Donna Lee, you being the first to graduate high school. I'm the same in my family. And then also through you dealing with, rejection and, kind of the theme of maybe imposter syndrome or working through perfectionism that we deal with as women. And then also Dominique, you being a mom. And I know for me, I have he's going to be 2 in May. Going through just motherhood during a pandemic has definitely just stretched me. But it's just nice to hear, that I'm not in it alone. And, we're all in some way just kind of going through similar themes. So just wanted to thank you all for that. And so I know I don't see any, to Erica's point, any questions that have been posed. So I went ahead and wrote some down myself. So let's
pick your favorite.
I will say, who's the most influential woman that you can attribute that has been a catalyst for growth within your career? And it's not limited to Accenture, just overall, and it doesn't necessarily have to be within the workforce.
Wow. Donnelly, you want to take that one first?
I have to say it's someone in my family. It was my grandmother, my dad's mom. She raised 8 children by herself with no public support, and they all were successful. And she died when I was 12, but she always taught me to be truthful, to treat other people with respect. And she was just my hero, and she still is. And there were so many things that she told me that I had no idea what she was talking about. But as an adult, I remember things and I'm thinking, wow, she really was insightful. So she's the one, and I still think about her all the time. And, you know, and she just keeps me going because she said, you just keep doing it. You just keep, if you want to do it, you can. You just have to work at it and keep it going. So that's who it would be for me, my grandmother.
That's beautiful.
It's funny, I was thinking the same thing before you said that, Donnelly, so I'm not copying you, I swear. But my dad's mother was also, both of my grandmothers and grandfathers, actually, I was very fortunate. I had all of them until I was about 25. But my dad's mother especially, my dad grew up on a farm in rural Indiana. They didn't have running water until, like, they had well water and outside like porta pot kind of thing, and until I was a young person, very poor. The kids, my dad and his siblings were very fortunate if they got underwear and socks for Christmas. But she was just very just loving, and she didn't let the hard times, you know, bring her down. She was really supportive of my grandfather and running the farm, you know, took care of all the kids. And my dad's generation was the first to ever go to college. And every single one of her kids, all 7 kids, ended up graduating from college, which she was just so proud of. But she reminds me, you know, now that I think of it, a lot of Donna Lee. So she was a nurse, you know, trained to be a nurse. And I think a lot of that, you know, she brought out in us too, right? She could always, you know, fix whatever problem it was. You know, I'd always call and be like, okay, well, you know, what do I do for this? And, you know, I still pick up the phone to call her sometimes and ask for advice. So I think my grandmother as well.
And Anja?
So for me, I would have to choose my mom. She is a tiger mom. So I can tell you that she survived the war. She survived witnessing death within family. So, but she always have a positive attitude about life. Like everything can be resolved and nothing is impossible. And then this is timing back to my fear of failure again. Every time that I try something and I'm saying, Mom, I'm afraid I'm gonna fail. And she was like, then don't fail. Not don't try, but don't fail. So that is her being a tiger mom, pushing me to today.
Or Yoda, you know, either one. There is no try.
Just do
it, make it happen.
Just do it and don't fail.
Right.
We've been watching a lot of Star Wars in our house during the pandemic. Sorry about that. I couldn't help myself.
That's awesome. So it actually does look like a question came through, and someone wants to know this is a powerful one. What legacy would you like to leave for the future generation? Anyone that wants to take that one.
We'll do one person because time flies when you're having fun. But I think that's a great question. I'll do mine real quick, and then I want a panelist. The legacy that I would want to leave is that we can do so much more than we think, and don't allow someone else to tell you who you are and what you can do. I think so many times, I was talking to my mom about it, there are limitations. And when I asked my mom what she would tell her younger self, she said that she would tell herself that she could go to med school, that she could be a doctor. She was like, I always wanted to be a doctor, but I just never thought that I could be and didn't think I was smart enough to be. And, you know, there were people around me who loved me and encouraged me, but they didn't encourage me to do that. So just don't limit yourself. There are so many things where they are now because someone invented it. They are now because someone thought of it. It didn't exist before, and now it does because a woman. So we can do so much more than we know. We are capable of so much more than others think, and don't allow other people to decide who you are and what you can achieve.
I love that, and I agree with you 100%. So with that being said, to go ahead and close us out, I will pass it over to our VMHS account lead, Mr. Sean Roman. Thank you.
Thanks, Portia. First off, thank you all, the panelists. Fantastic stories. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for the openness. I mean, this is the type of dialogue we, aspire to have across the sector. Dealing with each other as individuals and respecting each of our unique stories. And so thank you for the openness to sharing them. I just continue to be excited about the tremendous leaders we have across our business. My quick story answer to that question. I certainly have been influenced by amazing women in my life, from my wife to my family members, mother, grandmothers, but I'll tell you a quick story about a work leader. My story is different than Chris and Vince's. I joined Accenture in '93, Andersen Consulting, and my first leaders that I worked for, Renelle Welch, Chrissy Howard, Denise Malecki, Amy Loftus, and Christine Caponigri, were my bosses for my first 6 years with the firm. So I had a different experience starting out back then. And they were each, obviously amazing leaders in different ways. Amy, to this day, is one of the favorite people I've ever worked for. Her grace and poise under pressure is something I still aspire to emulate. The way she handled difficult situations with a firmness, a sense of empathy, and frankly, a classiness to the way she engaged in any situation. I'd love to think that someday I'll be nearly as good at doing it as she did. So it's great to learn from everybody that you work with and live with and experience with. And I'm fortunate that you're all part of this team, because I'm excited about our future together. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Sean, and thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. We hope that this is a continued series where we just bring in multiple people, different people from different backgrounds into these conversations to show that there's so much that we have in common. There's so much that differs as well, and that we can learn from each other, that there is no limit to this community, that we can grow and learn and really take these experiences and view them as something that makes us better and not something that weakens us. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you to our awesome panelists. Thank you to our amazing leads who kicked us off. So Chris and Vince, thank you, Sean, for sharing your story. I love hearing and just the impact that, strong female leads don't just impact other females, they impact entire industries. So you bringing that home for us today, Sean, just really, really couldn't have ended it on a more perfect note. With that, thank you, everyone. We hope that you have a great rest of your Thursday, and happy Women's History Month. Take care.
Thanks, Erica.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.